What is up, everyone? Chris Manning and Wes Goldberg here with you on the Just Basketball Show, your twice-weekly show covering all things hoops. As always, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on X, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all there, all your social media platforms. Find the show more. But today's episode is brought to you by BetMGM.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JUSTBASKETBALL. You'll get up to $1,500 on a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JUSTBASKETBALL. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. Just make sure to use the bonus code JUSTBASKETBALL when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Also got to tell you about our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses that uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use our link below, make your purchase, and support the Just Basketball Show. Their starter collection is A+. I have like 3 pieces from it for Cleveland sports teams. Go check them out. You won't regret it. Wes, let's start with Zach LaVine. I know the NBA Cup happened, but it's trade season in the NBA. We're here. Dennis Schroeder set it off, and now Zach LaVine rumored to be of interest to the Denver Nuggets. And I got to tell you, I really like this for Denver. If they're able to do this, I've talked myself into this. Pull the curtain back a second. We were texting about what to cover on the show today. I've had a very busy couple days of work finishing up stuff for the holidays in corporate America. And you said Zach LaVine to the Nuggets. And I immediately had like a mini panic attack in my chest, wondering if I missed Zach LaVine being traded to the Nuggets. As someone who doesn't have X on my phone right now, who is like kind of bricked my phone in a lot of ways. Like I just mostly like hit Reddit and see if I missed anything. Was panicked that there was like a LaVine trade that already happened. It has just been reported that the Nuggets have interest in LaVine. And you have to talk me off the excitement ledge here, but I really like this for Denver. I think a Michael Porter Jr. trade for 2 players is probably the optimal way to do this. But if they're not going to go that route, and it also is probably harder in this environment to get 2 role players into that salary slot, it just is. I think LaVine as a on-ball scorer, as a spacer, and putting him as like the third peg on a good team, I think that's the kind of swing that I could really get behind for Denver.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull you off the cliff. I'm going to push you over it here.
Let's go.
I'm in. I'm into this idea, and I'm surprised how little that I had to talk myself into it, too.
Yeah.
This, on its face, just makes a lot of sense. Zach Lowe tweeted from, wherever he is these days that...
Zach Lowe just post his wholesome Instagram posts and like play break. It's the best. This era of Zach Lowe, free agent Zach Lowe is incredible.
Quote tweeted the Athletic report that came out during the first quarter of the NBA Cup title game. Just shows you, and just quick aside, perfect metaphor for how little people care about the NBA Cup or the on-court product in general, and how most people just care about the soap opera trade rumor stuff.
I think Darvin Ham
during the game, nobody cares.
Darvin Ham cares the most. Taurean Prince, 2-time NBA Cup champion, cares the second most. Then I don't know how. And Adam Silver's probably third, and then everyone else is probably like ambivalent.
So once this report came out, Zach Lowe quote tweeted it and said that Denver has actually had interest in Zach LaVine in the past, and I thought that was interesting. And it makes sense why. He's a really clean fit in what it is that they're doing. The main reason I like it is I'm not even overthinking it here, Chris. Mm-hmm. It's a talent upgrade. And if you're the Denver Nuggets, since you won the championship in 2023, the rest of your competition has added talent and you've lost talent. This is just a talent play, and it makes a ton of sense. You're the Denver Nuggets. I know Zach LaVine's contract is tough a couple years from now. Who cares? Nikola Jokic is an MVP right now. Like, you're ready to go. You don't have the luxury of worrying about a couple of years from now. And look, Michael Porter Jr.'s contract isn't exactly like cap friendly or team friendly either. So you're moving one sort of tough contract for another one. You could basically do Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji for Zach LaVine straight up. And I think Chicago would at least have to think about that, especially if they're trying to move off of Zach LaVine. Denver might be able to include one first-round pick in the future or something like that. I'm sure Chicago would hold out for something like that. But Zach LaVine in a vacuum is a better player than Michael Porter Jr. And he provides some of the same things in terms of 3-point shooting, right? Lights out 3-point shooter, just the same way that Michael Porter Jr. is. If anything, on higher volume, because he can create his own shot. He can pull up into a 3-pointer where Porter Jr. can do a little bit of that, but just not as dynamic, not as at a high volume as Zach LaVine does it. And here's the part that I really like about it, Chris. It's kind of a hedge against Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
If his powers have been completely Space Jam zapped away here, like you now have an on-ball creator. Would it be crazy? And I know this sounds like blasphemous, and Denver Nugget fans don't want to hear this. If you traded for Zach LaVine, would he already be the second best player or second best offensive player on the Denver Nuggets?
I think I would have to just say it's a little bit blasphemous just because of the pedigree, right? Like I think there's an explosiveness with LaVine. There's a size thing with LaVine that would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I also think he, in terms of the parts of his game, you would want to kind of whittle out. Jokic is the perfect kind of guy to say, Zach, you don't get to just play iso ball as much anymore. We want you to cut a little more. Like him coming off of Jokic screens and give and goes to Jokic would be really dynamic instantly in a way Murray is not. I think there would be moments in certain series and against certain matchups where the game gets bogged in a half court, where maybe Murray doesn't have a given night, where that your statement would be true, that it would end up being that way. I mean, if you're thinking about them playing, let's say they're playing Oklahoma City, like the other best team in the West, you're going to need multiple perimeter creators on their own to attack that defense. You just are. And if Lou, I'm not going to say he's going to be super efficient against a Lou Dort, but he could be. He could have like nights where he gets hot. It gives you another way to attack that, even to break it down. It's almost necessary to have this kind of alternative to Murray. Porter Jr. has a lot of pluses. I like him, even if the Bulls are in this rebuilding phase, Wes. If he's a guy who's going to space off of your Kobe Whites, your Josh Giddey's, you can help you find out what you have in those guys. He's a little bit overpaid. Maybe you could flip him in again in a year to a team who wants that spacing and has a contract they want to move or something. You could still move him to a good team again in a year if you really wanted to. You could try to at least. He's not giving you that on ball. So that part of his game hasn't really developed enough where you're like, okay, we can throw him in ISO and he can get us a bucket in a tight game. LaVine, it's game 7 against Oklahoma City and Murray doesn't have it, and you need a tough bucket you need a quick shot coming off of an ATO, you can go to LaVine for that and have more faith that he's going to execute in that specific spot. And that way, I think it could definitely be, he could definitely have a higher ceiling than Murray in some ways.
So a couple of things here. In terms of the on-ball creation, I think that's a super important part of this. Michael Porter Jr. is not the on-ball creator that Zach LaVine is. When Zach LaVine is right, and for this season, he's been right. He's a joy to watch. He's got an incredibly smooth game, gets to the rim. He's a lights-out 3-point shooter. He's a good locker room guy by all indication. Like, everybody loves playing with this guy. The only problem with Zach LaVine is his contract and the fact that he's not worth that contract. But, everybody seems to love him. And I think you're seeing a little bit of this. So Denver played the Sacramento Kings the other day, and it was a really fun fourth quarter. Denver ends up escaping with the win. And they were kind of toggling between the Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic pick and roll, and Christian Brown was out in that game, so they started Russell Westbrook. So they were toggling between Murray Jokic pick and roll with Westbrook out on the wing, and then Westbrook Jokic pick and roll and Jamal Murray out on the wing. And the second one worked, but it did sort of limit Jamal Murray as sort of a spot-up shooter and took away that beautiful two-man game between him and Jokic. Whereas you had that beautiful two game between him and Jokic when it was him and when they were running the pick and roll, but then nobody was defending Russell Westbrook because nobody's defended him in years from the three-point line.
No.
Getting Zach LaVine in that Russell Westbrook spot changes a lot of that, doesn't it? And so now it's adding fuel to the fire that is your Jokic and Jamal Murray two-man game. I think that's helpful. And then it's also, Murray, you could imagine LaVine and Jokic playing a good two-man. Like, Jokic is the Tom Brady of the NBA. It's like, just put a guy with him. He's going to have a career year. It's like, oh my God, I didn't even know that Wes Welker was capable of 1,000 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns.
LaVine, this feels like LaVine's like Randy Moss in New England
Right.
era. Like,
yeah, exactly.
it's blasphemous to compare Zach LaVine to like one of the best receivers of all time. LaVine's not going to go down as one of the best players of all time.
Probably
But
not.
it's like, what if I put this freak athlete
Right.
with
Exactly.
the best decision maker we have in the league right now?
No,
And
it's
that
a
would
good
be
call.
this.
It's Randy Moss, Aaron Hernandez. No, sorry.
Is it like? I didn't want to say Antonio Brown either because that was kind of the one I thought of, but I was like, I don't want to compare anyone to Antonio
That
Brown.
didn't work. Anyway, yes, it's a great. There's a reason why you see guys like Bruce Brown, Jeff Green. Just go down the list. All these guys who have career years with Jokic, playing next to Jokic. Even Russell Westbrook right now. Like, this is the best version of this version of Russell Westbrook that we've seen, right? And so there's a reason why that's so. The other part of this that I like is Denver has slipped defensively in a way that is kind of alarming.
Yes.
Part of that is because they've lost a lot of their good defenders over the last couple of years. The other part is that Jokic just hasn't been as good defensively. Like, he was sort of trending towards above average defensively over these last couple of years. And this year he's kind of taken a step back, but it's because he has to play 38 minutes a night and do everything on offense. Of course, there's going to be slippage on that other end. You add LaVine, a guy who can just create his own shot without Jokic, and then maybe there's some returning dividends on the defensive end of the ball too for Jokic.
Yeah, Denver's 13th in defense. You kind of would like to see them get bumped up in the top 10 to feel great about, I think, their title chances as an indicator. And MPJ as a defender, I think it's fair to say he's improved, but I don't feel, and look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've watched every single possession and granularly broke this down, but watching them when I have and catching their games and paying attention to it, I don't feel like MPJ has improved and hit another level defensively since the finals run when he was probably at his best defensively. When it was markedly improved how he's defending shots, contesting shots, being like a more aware NBA player. I don't think he's hit that other level where he's become like a good defender. And he hasn't or I shouldn't say good defender, like a great defender. He also hasn't added that on ball, that creation that you might want him to really, if you're not gonna get this, like this, the switch army knife stuff isn't gonna come. You can maybe want him to develop on the on ball, and he's kind of. It's maybe unfair to say he's plateaued, and because he's going into his prime. There's maybe still another level for a guy that has the talent that he has, but it doesn't feel like he's improving at the rate fast enough to give the Nuggets exactly what they need right now. That's how I look at it.
I think that's fair. He has gotten a little bit better in terms of on ball creation and just like getting guys involved. I think that might just be him. The game slowing down for him within the Denver Nuggets ecosystem. Where it just feels like, oh, like this happens, and like A happens, and now I know B happens, and C will be open, right? But he's not really creating shots for others. I just think he's like kind of recognizing patterns a little bit more. So you're seeing his assist numbers tick up a little bit. Defensively, he has been a little bit better. The main thing for him is that he's been available. He played 81 of the 82 games last season. He's been mostly available for this season. That's the biggest shift for Michael Porter Jr. And it's why that contract isn't untradeable anymore, right? It's, oh, well, this guy can play after all the back surgeries and some of the problems that he was having. I think he's a really good player. I think Zach LaVine is a better player. And so if you're Denver, that's why this trade makes some sense.
And functionally, it's like, no disrespect to Zeke Naji. I don't, like, if Zeke Naji is the salary
DeAndre
reason,
Jordan was playing over him the other night. I mean, it's
I
over for him in Denver. He needs a change of scenery.
Yeah, I don't care. I think this is... I don't want to. I feel slightly hypocritical considering I just absolutely dunked on LaVine the other day in his contract and when we talked about trade things. But this is one I really candidly had not considered, and this is one that I do really like. The more we've broken, and I feel like Denver, to your point earlier, to maybe bring this full circle, this is the kind of trade that at their point and where they are, I think, like if it costs you a first. I don't go for the title. If you get another title, you give Jokic, you get this window. Kind of just got to swing for the fences. I think it would be worth the risk.
So his starting lineup hypothetically would be Jamal Murray, Zach LaVine, Christian Brown, and out small forward, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. You're a little undersized.
Yeah,
I did like the length that Michael Porter Jr. had. Although LaVine has a longer wingspan. He's like 6'5", 6'6", so he's not a shorty, right? Like he's not coming in.
No.
But like Michael Porter Jr. is like 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", something like that. So, you're getting a little bit smaller. I do think maybe it's an overall wash defensively, probably like all in all. Offensively, I think you're capable of hitting another level. Like if Denver can be still 13th in defense, but top 2 in offense, that's a title contending profile these days. And that might be what the goal is in a trade like this.
Yeah, I think that's right. Hope they do this sooner rather than later. I think would be just get it. If you're going to do it, let's more time to acclimate, more time to do it. I think would be worth it.